Now, Matthew, your great love is church history. Just tell us a little bit about what drives you and motivates you in teaching church history here at college. We're so glad you do. Just tell us kind of your heart in that.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So I've always liked history. Before I felt any sense of call to ministry, that was actually the plan, to go and do a PhD in history and pursue teaching and research in a more secular kind of way. And then upon going into ministry, feeling that sense of call, pastoring the church, it's been a really happy piece of God's providence that I've kind of been able to combine the two, coming here to Oak Hill, getting to teach and to think about history. And so all of my academic work is in history. That's where my degrees have been. And yeah, it's a great opportunity, great experience. It's interesting though with history, if we think about we've kind of got four main divisions at a theological college like this, and it feels like of those four, so we have biblical studies, systematic theology, practical theology, and then historical studies, church history. It feels sometimes like church history and historical study is the only one of those four that sort of has to justify its own existence.
I can feel a little bit smug about this because no one says, "Oh, well, the Old Testament is that important," So I never have to worry about that.
That's right. No one's ever said to me, helping people learn how to preach really well. Why do you do that at college? Yeah. So we got the three really important subject areas and the one you teach.
It does feel, and actually, in fairness, there is a certain logic to it. I can sort of see it. And yet at the same time, I want to put the plug in for church history because I feel like actually it's having an historical sense, having an historical awareness is actually really, really important. It's important for the church. It's important for people in ministry. It's important, I think, for leadership in a church context. It's important for, I think, one's own sort of soul and one's own Christian life. I think it's really nourishing.
So as you have students in doctrine and history classes, maybe they're not saying this out loud, but they're thinking that hundreds and thousands of years ago, this stuff happened. Do I really need to know this? How will you negotiate that with a student and with a class? Help us think that through. Why does this matter so much in practical ways for our own Christian life and for our ministries?
Yeah, no, thanks. And it does come up. And in fact, with the, so I do the church history survey course here. And so this is the very first semester, and we kind of start there. And one of the first things I try to say is first, I try not to oversell it. As I mentioned, there's a logic to it. I think it's not an accident that people say, well, do we really need this, right? And so I try to say to folks, look, I'm not saying that if you are talking to someone in the church context who has a pressing problem, a pressing life crisis, you're not going to say, well, have you thought about the investiture controversy and how,
this was this guy in 452.
Yeah, exactly. So, to me, first step, don't oversell it. But then to try to help students to see how it's not just about knowing names and dates. Now, in fairness, I think there's some value to knowing some names and some dates, and I think that can be helpful. That's not a bad thing. I'm not against names and dates. But at the end of the day, to me, it's really about cultivating a sense of this historical movement and this sense that I'm situated in a particular time, in a particular place. I have a context. I have a relationship to those Christian men and women who came before. I am affected by them. There's continuity and discontinuity with them, and there's important things that I need to take from that and learn from that and bring to bear on the way I think about the present moment.
Do you think it's true to say, in a sense, that we're debtors to Christians of earlier generations, even if they were in a different part of the church, and even if we might have had significant and perhaps valid theological disagreements with them, in a sense, we're still debtors to them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's the obvious ways in which, I didn't, someone had to teach the gospel to me. Someone had to preach to me. Someone had to preach to the person who preached to me. And so there's this obvious sense of a chain that goes all the way back in which we're all debtors to those who came before. But then in a wider sense, The way that we do things at my local church is not something that we all invented out of nothing. We stand in this relationship to the past. We're conditioned by it, and I think if you don't realize that you actually do have these sorts of traditions weighing on you, and you just imagine that everything you do is somehow unique to you, or that you invented it. It's not that you won't have traditions; you just won't understand them, and you won't be in a position to think wisely and well about them.
Yeah.